Hi, yo, what's up, guys, and welcome to my channel. And yeah, so basically, yeah, today I want to do some sharings about that, which I think is much more like just a sharing talk, like because it's much more like somehow something I got from discussion with people and while talking with my wife as well. Yeah, like all the ideas coming out from here, and somehow you still have like some other like evidence to show that what I'm thinking is not correct. Yeah, sure, it's totally fine. And the fun thing is that for you to just create something and you just try to challenge it. Yeah, I mean that's the best part for debates and the idea like to collapse. I mean, to hate on onto each other, collide into each other, and yeah, that's how we how shall we make, right? Yeah. So basically, uh, when we try to talk about church, always we have a sense of concept. Church is a need, and somehow church is everything that we need to create. Yeah, or something that we need to keep in a sense. Okay, I need to do a disclaimer. I'm not an anti-church people or nor like a anti-religious, but for me, like to do this kind of discussion is much more like what is the ideal church and what is the problem that we face in between it. Yeah, so it is much more like this kind of discussion. So when we try to look at uh, just look at our own church in a sense. I try to look in this way. And most of the time, we have an issue is that, okay, we have a good idea. And but then while we are trying to live into the church or like live in the center, a lot of time we just found a serious issue is that we don't have money. And it's much more like the more you're trying to make something, somehow you are not really getting into it. So in the past, I would just say something much more, yeah, it's that they don't really hire somebody who is really professional and everything and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it is much more like a professionality issue. But after I just try to rethinking about it, actually, it's not everything about like a professionality. It's much more like the environment itself is not really welcoming the professionals in a sense because a lot of time professional what does professional means it means like they need to be critic they are meant to like criticize for the system if the system is not working and if anything is not it's not working smoothly like in terms of business money is not gaining profits if we are talking about like a management the structure itself is not efficient enough like if we're talking about uh, like a bookkeeping, like it's not even like a I would say presentable or like let's say transparent enough. Yeah, people will just criticize. But a lot of this kind of thing will come into a church and we will just ignore it. And like why we ignore it is much more like we just don't want to cause any trouble onto us. So this kind of trouble it come in two ways. Firstly, it's like also like personally, individually, we are afraid that we don't know anything in details and we put the wrong judgment and the curse will come to us, right? We will believe that if you hurt others hard, you will just be cursed somehow in this way, and somehow it just make our members or even staff like around the important people start to hesitate to say anything or like try to stop them or trying to say that no this is something not correct because always we are afraid we are still lacking of some information because of the transparency of the information is not enough at all. But if we try to open up everything in a very like a transparent way, we're just making people just think that oh yeah, so nothing more that we can try to explain. There is a miracle, like there is like something that we can try to make onto it. Yeah, and a lot of time people have like the kind of thought that oh I want to gain some benefit out of nothing. Like even like they are not the minorities, they will just try to make a name and try to create the minorities and try to just claim onto it, right? That's how our society always working onto it. And somehow in this case, a lot of time the leaders choose not to open up the transparency. Okay, that's the issue. And but then like if you try to look into it, a lot of time a church, a building, a place where we for us to gather together, so called a fixed place for us to gather together, and always we need to spend more money onto the rental. We need to spend the money for the people who are maintaining here. Uh, we need to spend the money to try to run the organization legally. Yeah, and everything is about the money and all about like the legalizations and all this kind of things is annoying and somehow actually it's not really building the church towards much more church here or just much more like we're trying to building something that is being keep on trying to be crushed by someone else. Just look at Korea, just look at Japan, and even you can just look at Malaysia somehow. Yeah. So a lot of part of the place, that that's a issue that okay, the building of the church is not even legalized. So it would just make everything much more complicated. But at the same time, if you want to make it legalized, it's too expensive to us to maintain onto it. It's much more like it's much more designed for like a business company or like a business community in a sense. So usually when I try to understand it this way, so we'll just hesitate onto our own benefits in some sense, right? So it's like, I need to try to make sure everything I give, it will be much more fit onto like the what's the original price and blah 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 blah. Yeah, so you understand what I mean? Like, it's a lot of like consequences after that, after that, after that. So people don't want to make consequences, right? It's like a totally normal things, and we're trying to make it better. But if we try to look at the divine principle, or we try to look at the Bible, does it necessary to say that a fixed place that is being called church, or like actually it's like the gathering of the people itself, actually, and that center on God itself that is being called church? I think it's much more onto the number two, so instead of number one. So just think it this way, like if our Chenjongong and Chumongong that I already mentioned, so if we just go into like a Chenjongong and Chumongong and we just walk into it and somehow you found nothing inside, you found you found no true parents photo, you found no Chenjongong or Chumongong photo inside it. We don't show anything about our church thing, but we're showing K-pop, we're showing politicians, we're showing only like a country flag, only country flag. Doesn't mean that usually we don't show like we show, but like only country flags, and and somehow you just understand that like in your mind like didn't into it, you just understand that there's nothing to do with our church anymore in this sense. Like our brain will just assume it. And once we assume it and the heart is not being how can I say united together. So that's how everything will just crumble into pieces and people just scatter. Yeah. But if we're really just trying to look onto like some examples, I'm not really saying that everybody should go with this way, but okay, we have two examples. Somehow after I talk with my wife to show me another example of the opposite side. But okay, one of the example we try to look at the Singapore somehow. Okay, sorry, Singaporean brothers and sisters, but somehow I really feel that you all are really rich. And the only thing I can try to understand right here is that okay, God put you into a situation, you have no choice, but you can only work. Yeah, you can only focus on your time to work, and while you're trying to working, you focus on working. So that's why you just achieve it, and somehow this is much more like the first principle that right. If we're using the first principle theory, if you want to achieve something to be the expert, you need to put the most time onto it. Yeah, and now, I'm not saying that you're like just money maker or anything, but just compared to other like Southeast Asia or a lot of part of like a group like around the world. Somehow, actually, Singaporeans are really rich somehow. Yeah, even though maybe you are relatively not that rich inside your country. Yeah. So in this way, in this case, yeah, somehow like my understanding would be much more like maybe if we do the same thing as like a Singaporean, maybe then we'll just reduce all our like expenses and everything. Yeah. And in the end, people just say that yeah, Malaysia don't have any church and is not being persecuted by the government. Like I mean, outside people are just gonna say that, and it's just that oh they just close it by themselves, and somehow it's just much more like we are cowards. Somehow that kind of terms, which is cool. Which everybody doesn't really want it. So that's why a lot of people are trying to protect it. I would say somehow coming from this way, if we try to understand the fear from more people, just like when we try to debate with like Christian people, like Christian friends, and like they can't they can't just agree onto that. Okay, Jesus is revived spiritually, but they much more believing on like a Jesus revived physical. Yeah. So this kind of like a understanding because like if Jesus don't revive like physically, then the salvation itself it might just go into dust. Like that's what they are afraid of, and like our theory already say, yeah, actually it's not. It's not that Jesus like revive physically or just make everything in vain. No, no, no. Like actually like whatever Jesus did, it will be a recall and everything. Yeah. So there's much more our understanding in this way. Yeah. So, but if we try to understand like a human society, like how we trying to form, okay, let's say everybody will start the same, no one to be much more better than anyone. And somehow how we do the selections itself is that, okay, somebody who have the most like uh, ingredients. And if we try to look at the so-called communism way, okay, yeah, and there's much more like an ideal case without human sin, yeah. So we don't need to do something like exchange, but we're just trying to go with like an emotion. So emotionally, someone who is much more attractive, so people will just easily get around them. And somehow people easily just trying to follow those people who are emotionally kind and calm and trying to attract everybody together. So that's how the model just being formed. And somehow when they are a small group, actually it's a very good and healthy and happy like a group of people like staying together. Why? Because they are trying to sharing like the same type of like energy. So I admire this leader, and this leader still have the ability and the time and efforts to try to take care of all the people below him. But the issue is coming after that. Like the issue after it is that okay, if I trying to if my group is growing and it become bigger, and somehow I have an issue is that I don't have all the time and ability to try to control over everybody. So what I gonna do right there as a leader? So I need a second leader. But here comes the questions. So is it always necessary the second leader is as famous or popular or being loved as like the first leader? So usually it's not. And if we're trying to understand this kind of like a model itself, and we try to put into our church way of like understanding, okay, so we are trying to understand or we're trying to uh, copy what our church parents are doing to serve God. Yeah, that's how we are trying to learn. But the problem right here is that church parents don't have the ability to try to take care every single one of the people because of the law, because of the culture, because of everything that is difference in between it. And so then that's why two parents tend to elect like the national leader and everything. But not necessarily national leader know everything about your parents. Not necessarily national leader was welcomed by everybody that who joined into the church. So it's kind of different from like a Christian church itself. Like okay, just in a way, like if the Christian they have like they open a new church. Somehow people are attracted to that church because the pastor is much more resemble one part of Jesus, and people just recognize that part and trying to follow him. But for for our true parents, up until right now, somehow they are still vividly in everybody's memory. And true mother still alive, true father still. A lot of people still can recognize true father or like memorize true father from the past somehow, something in this way. So if you try to understand it this way, there's a big, huge difficulties for a national leader or like a church leader to bring out their own personality that they trying to, how should I say, be the representative or like the model that who trying to practice be like true parents. Instead, people are just trying to follow the true parents and the church leader. They are just church leader, and somehow inside this kind of like organization itself, it will be much more a bigger issue because why? Because the more like the people that you have, the more ideas people were getting into it, and the more kind of like a diverge way and we just come onto it. So that's what your parents want to create, not create, but somehow like to set up all kind of like a thing. So we have the general constitutions and all kind of like materials that we are supposed to keep and keep it strict. Yeah, but a lot of time because of the scholars and because of the translators, they have their kind of like a mindset. So a lot of things actually still missing. So that's why true parents always say you need to study Korean no matter what. Yeah. So basically, that's the whole point onto it. So is the church still really necessary all the time? Okay, the other side of the answer is like you can look at Brazil. Somehow they are still working, but I still don't know like how much, how active, what was the percentage that everybody is working right there. Yeah, but just much more like that's what I'm thinking right now is much more diverge and everything. The thinking is like fluctuating here and there, but I try to make it into a flow. Yeah, so I hope you all just understand it and just enjoy it. Yeah, so just wish you all just enjoy it. And yeah, see you in my next video, I guess. See ya.